please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome, Mayor.
If there is no objection, the chair proposes at this time to proceed to item number 10 on the agenda. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, you go to item number 10.
Sure. I'm opening nominations for the Select Board Chair. Do I have a nomination?
I nominate Gardner Trask to be chair for the next year.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any other nominations?
I nominate Dan Bennett to be chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any other nominations? Hearing none, I'm closing nominations. Do I have a motion?
Clarification here. 2 first and 2 second.
Two nominations. They've both been seconded.
Okay.
Now I need a motion.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can they do half and half? Half a year, half a year? No?
No,
Okay.
that wouldn't work.
Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing. I never hear this system. Can someone repeat what was just said?
I have 2 nominations. You nominated Gardner,
Yeah.
and Maureen nominated Dan. Both have seconds. I
Okay.
need a motion. There's 2 nominations. The motion,
So, Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we elect Gardner Trask as the chair, which will be the main motion.
okay. Do I have a second?
Second. Oh, I can't second. Who made the motion?
Dan made
You
the
can
motion.
second
Okay, I second
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, Gardner Trask would be the select chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Normally, we shake hands and thank the, and switch seats, but in deference to moving around in COVID times, we're going to stay where we are tonight. I want to thank Dan. He did yeoman's work for 2 years as chairman and led us through probably one of the town's most difficult times during COVID. There was a lot of issues to deal with, and I appreciate that he took a second year and kept the continuity to help guide us and deal with some other difficult situations during his 2-year tenure. So thank you very much, Dan.
it. Could I make a statement?
Yes, please.
I'd also like to say, I don't know if you can hear this.
Yep.
I asked Dan Bennett to serve a second year as chairman of this board, and he agreed to accept that nomination a year ago. Never in a million years did I expect that he would be dealing with the Blue Line flag and COVID and daily communication with the town manager and management, which is going to lead me in the future to propose that the chair of the board be granted a much more substantial stipend, probably $20,000 or $25,000, and that would still be about $10 an hour for what Dan Bennett did over the last year. So I thank you very much, Dan, for serving, and you really did a wonderful job.
Thank you, David.
Anybody else have comments? All right, at this time, we'll move to new business.
Minutes, please.
Oh, please, yes?
No, the approval of the minutes.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you're right. I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes of May 6, 2021.
So moved.
Motion made,
Second?
seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now we'll move to new public business. Is there anyone in the audience who has new public business that's not already on the agenda? Sir?
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I had a couple of questions. One is, has the town been able to make any progress, or can we have a progress report on locating town-owned property adjacent to the waterways in Danvers, having them properly marked off and labeled as such, perhaps even saying what they're good for or can be used for?
So we were successful in obtaining a grant to do some of the paper research associated with those paper streets and rights-of-way. As with everything else, it's more complicated than it first appears. Staff is working right now with the survey team to determine where the acceptances started and stopped and what the process looks like to clear up and formalize exactly what you're talking about. So no final update tonight, Bill, but it's underway. We were successful in getting the assistance we needed to start to answer these questions.
Just tell me we're working on it.
Yes, sir.
I'm happy. The other thing was, as I noticed, and it's been discussed before, in the electric bill is a customer charge for $7.50. If possible, could the electric light division put something together, send it out with everybody's bill, explaining how this charge came about, how it was determined that $7.50 was appropriate to charge all of the electricity using customers in Danvers. And along that same line, is this a similar charge to what's on the sewer and water bill that calls it a water service charge? And that's $17, however, that's over a 3-month period.
So to the first question, we did at our last meeting, ask the town manager to invite the electric division in to discuss the rate changes they're proposing, including that $7.50 charge. As to the equation to the sewer and water, I'll let the town manager speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did speak to David Lane, our utility director. The Light Board is having a deeper conversation regarding the cost of service charge, which was discussed by this board at their June meeting. No other actions anticipated at that point. And I did speak to the outgoing chair about having the Light Board come in August when we reconvene to provide an update to this board. And in answer to your question, it is comparable. Yes, the service fee that you described on the water and sewer bill is comparable to the customer charge on the electric bill in terms of costs associated with maintaining the system itself.
My main point was that, depending on how the meeting goes later this summer, that some information is put together and submitted or
Bill,
sent
speak
to
into the
all.
microphone, please.
I'm sorry. I'm just hoping that after this meeting is convened in summer, that at some point the letter will be put together accompanying everyone's bill explaining how this came about, why it was necessary, how they determined the charge, possibly even if the charge is going to be a jumped up or increased yearly, what have you, just so we know ahead. Some of us like to budget money, so if I'm going to have to forego a cup of coffee, I want to know where it's going to go.
So as to, we're working on it, is the answer that you usually are looking for.
Yes.
As to putting that in the electric bill, I think we will be looking for the electric division after their next meeting, public meeting, to report back and determine what decisions they made, and we will have them before us to talk about it and publicize what the surcharge is and why it is and what the effects are.
So this will all take place at a future meeting then,
Yes,
as long as you're working on it. Thank you.
working on it.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here that has new public business that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to agenda item number 3. A public hearing will be held under Chapter 138 of the General Laws. The application of Samander Corp., doing business as the Wine Cellar of Danvers, 55 Needham Road. Hiram Patel, manager, for a transfer of all alcoholic beverage retail liquor license, including a pledge of license at that location. The license previously held by RWJ Beverages, LLC. Madam Clerk, is there all the paperwork in order?
It is.
Thank you. Welcome. If you could introduce yourself, we are being recorded, so speak into the mic so they can pick you up.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Matthew Porter. I'm the attorney for Samander Corp. Along with me tonight is Hiran Patel and Haresh Patel. They are the two principals of the applicant, Samander Corporation. In addition to that, Hiran Patel is the proposed license manager. Haresh Patel is the proposed assistant manager of the location. As you stated, what's before the board is the transfer of the Section 15 package store license, which is currently in use at 55 Needham Road within the BJ's location. The transfer will be a fairly straightforward one. There's no major changes to the operation of the store whatsoever. The intention certainly here is to retain as many employees as these two individuals certainly can. Both Mr. Patels have experience in liquor store industry in the past. They certainly understand the rules and responsibilities that come along with operating a license. They are both alcohol tip certified. All of their employees would be required to be alcohol tip certified as well, whether that be employees that they're retaining or new employees. There is a pledge of the license to Rockland Trust, who is financing the transaction. So with that, I can certainly answer any questions that the board may have. Mr. Patels can as well.
Thank you very much. I'll start down at Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions for the applicant. First, can you just refresh my memory at that location? The store is open to the public, the general public? You don't need to be a BJ's member to enter the store?
That is correct, yes. So I think the location is located on the right-hand side, sort of housed apart from the BJ's location. But that's
Okay.
correct. You don't have to have an actual membership in order to purchase
All right,
within
great.
that location.
Thank you for that. And just one other question, the hours, they'll be the same as the store, as BJ's?
Yes, as they're currently operated,
Yeah.
no changes to the hours
Okay.
whatsoever.
All right, great. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Maureen?
Those were my questions too, are the hours, so, thank you.
Sure.
Dan?
Thank you. Certainly no reflection on you gentlemen, but that location has a history of not checking IDs. We take that very seriously in Danvers, that you check IDs.
Yeah, we were made aware of that. I had a conversation with the seller today who expressed that. These guys, I know in all their previous locations, the policy's just been to card everybody. It seems to be the easiest way to avoid violations, as straightforward as that may sound. So that's the way that they'll continue to operate. I also do understand that the town may have their own tip certification training. If that's still being offered, then certainly these guys are looking at any possible resources that the town has.
It's often, we've already had it in this past year. I don't know when the next time it will be offered.
Sure.
Certainly all license holders will be notified when that's available.
Yeah, and they'd be happy to take part in that.
Wonderful. Good luck to you.
David, do you have any questions?
Thank you.
I'll ask my usual questions. I see that Mr. Patel is going to be at the building, well, the manager, Hiram Patel, is going to be at the building 40 hours a week. And I thank you for preemptively asking a question about tip certification. Can I just ask, Mr. Patel, have you had previous experience running a retail liquor store?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We
Can you
have-
expand on that just a little bit?
What is it?
Just tell us a little bit more about what you did.
Okay, I was there all the time, like more than 40 hours, which was located in Linfield,
Okay.
and I was carding everybody.
All right. And you were the manager on the liquor license at the Linfield location?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Those are my questions. This is a public hearing. Does any member of the public wish to speak on this subject?
Motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll accept a motion regarding this action.
I'll make a motion as presented to approve.
Motion made? And a second? Thank you. Are there any more discussion on the main motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Town clerk has some paperwork. Okay. Thank you. All right, agenda item number 4. Public hearing will be held under Chapter 138 of the General Laws on the application of MB Spirits LLC, doing business as MB Spirits, 139 Endicott Street. Bruce Charles Casaza, manager, for a transfer of an all-alcoholic beverage retail license at that location. This license was previously held by Endicott Liquors, Inc. Welcome, gentlemen. Who would like to speak to this? And please speak into the mic.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members. My name is Stephen Miller. I'm an attorney with McDermott, Quilty & Miller. I have with me Bruce Charles Casasa who will be the proposed manager of record, and also Gary Crossan, representing Demoulas Supermarkets. We're seeking your approval for the transfer of a license held by Endicott Liquors to MB Spirits LLC. MB Spirits LLC is wholly owned by Demoulas Supermarkets, and Demoulas has been selling alcohol for decades, well more than 50 years. They have 29 locations in New Hampshire, 2 all-alcohol locations in Maine, and they have another MB Spirits store in Massachusetts in Waltham that they've been operating for approximately 3 years. Mr. Casasas has significant experience in the industry. He was the manager of the Seabrook, New Hampshire Demoulas that sells alcoholic beverages for 17 years. He has overseen the store in Waltham, the opening of the store, and getting up to speed in Waltham. He would do the same thing in Danvers, subject to your approval. We also filed to have 2 assistant managers, Mike Clark and Steve Casucci. We do our own training, but at the same time, Mr. Casasas has taken the TIPS course and is certified, and we will require all the employees in the store to be certified. I heard some of the questions. There'd be no changes to the existing layout of the store, and it would be exactly the same hours, and our intention is to keep as many of the employees as possible. I think that gives you a basic overview, and we'll certainly answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much. Just to the clerk, all paperwork is in order?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And we were just discussing briefly, this is the standalone building in the Endicott Plaza area?
Yes.
Okay. And it will retain, only because I didn't realize it was a Market Basket relationship, but it's staying where it is in that building, separate from the actual Market Basket shopping experience.
Right now, it will be exactly the same.
Great.
And if there is any changes, Mr. Chairman and members, as you know, we would come before you with any plans to change it.
Thank you. I'll start with Maureen.
No questions.
Dan?
No, he answered the question. I was interested in the ownership piece on that. Was it say now wine spirits on the front? On the building, what's it say? It's called?
MB Spirits.
That's what it says? Okay, yeah. No, I have
Oh,
no...
the existing is wine spirits.
Well, that's what I thought. That's what I said.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all. So I just wanted to clarify that I had the right address, location, and the name of the business.
Yes.
And apparently I do. Thank you. And that's just a plain transfer?
Correct.
No changes to the alteration to the premises?
No changes to the
No changes,
premises.
okay. You're going to lower the prices or raise the prices?
It'd be much lower prices. Always lower prices at the
There you go.
Demoulas. They're
Thank you. I have no
brainwashing
other
me,
questions,
too.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
And Pat, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you just expand on the ownership piece? Because it's kind of common knowledge that I think Market Basket purchased this property, or at least the contents, last summer. So I'm just curious as to why it's taken so long to come before the board? Well, I'll try to, let me say it in a different way. So how long has Market Basket owned that location or that store?
The plaza?
Just that store where you have the operation
The
today?
liquor store?
Yeah.
We don't own it now.
Or you don't own it? But the
It's
people that work in there, aren't they Market Basket employees?
So the current owner of the store is a longtime family friend of Mr. Demoulas and the Demoulas family, and he asked for some assistance last summer, and that's how this whole thing came about, that he wanted to sell, and we decided to buy. So we have been assisting him, but he gets all the funds, he does the ordering, he pays the bills. We do not touch
Okay,
any
all
of
right,
the
well,
funds.
thank you for the clarification. It wasn't clear to me what the ownership status was at the moment, so it would have seemed to have been a long time to wait before. So that sounds like it's all set. And then just one other question about the movement of the, because I went to a planning board meeting last week where there was a project approved by the planning board to move that store into what was formerly Chuck E. Cheese. So when you make that move, you'll come back and submit another application to actually do that move?
Yeah, I mean, we can't do anything, obviously, as you know,
Yeah,
without your approval.
Yep.
And it's something that's been looked at and obviously in front of the planning board. But for the near term, we're going to operate it as is, and then as the plans get closer along and renovations occur to the plaza, we would be back before you with a new floor plan
Okay.
and
All
for
right.
your approval.
all right, sounds good. Thank you very much for that information. I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. For consistency, I notice, again, that you'll be there 40 hours. These are the things I look for. Tip certification, you've already answered, and I think I am all set. This is a public hearing. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on this application?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now I'll accept a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the application as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the application. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you. This time, agenda item 5, the board will vote to accept the gift in accordance with MGL Chapter 44, paragraph 53A. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see Ken Reardon and Kelly Reyes Teixeira, our Veteran Service Officer, are here tonight. Related to this item, this item was discussed at a prior meeting and tabled while subsequent questions were being explored between the donor and the Veteran Service Office and the Veteran Service and the Veterans Council. And I believe Ken and/or Kelly are back tonight with an update on the work they've done in the meantime.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reardon, would you like to brief us again on your gift?
Thank you, Town Manager and Select Board, for having me back. I was here last month, and there was some discussion on this plaque that I wish to donate for the veterans in the military, and to see about having it installed in front of the Town Hall, in front of the other monuments. Since then, Dick Moody has met with the Rotary, Becky Kilborn, and she's willing to move the stone for the Rotary there up towards the monument that was donated for the veterans, Vietnam people, military. And also, since the last meeting, I met with each one of the board, one at a time, in front of Town Hall on a Saturday, and I wish to thank the ones that showed up for coming down on a Saturday to go over what my intent was to have this plaque mounted. And I showed them the plaque, I showed them the stone, I brought the plaque with me, and I think I answered most of their questions, and so my family would like to donate this plaque to the town in honor of our military and our veterans. And
Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking your time to help us visualize where it's going to be. Sometimes it's difficult here to see in our mind's eye where you're proposing, so thank you for, I appreciate you giving me a call and the others and having us come down and
thank you
see
for coming
exactly
down.
the location you're talking about and the position. So I will open this up to questions. Selectman Bennett.
I have no questions. I met with Ken on a Friday. And he showed me the location that he was thinking of in the stone. And I think at that time he indicated he didn't really need the little plaque that said donated by the Reardon family.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Is
And I
that going to be
appreciate-
allowed?
Excuse me?
Can I have that installed on there?
Well, it's up to the board.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I
Well,
just-
that would be one of my other questions.
You did say that you're willing to
Yeah.
do that if that's what the will of the board was. So thank you for the work you did. I think there's a lesson for people out there. If you want to make a gift, get the permission before you make it.
Yeah, well,
You know, it's, you kind
with
of...
the pandemic and everything going on, it was,
Yeah, but just,
yeah.
it's easier to, for us as a board to make a decision without having the fact that we went through the effort. Not that we're going to sway our decision, but I just think makes sense. I'm not telling you because you've already made it, but people in the future, don't buy the bench until you get the permission.
Okay.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Selectman Mills.
Thank you. It's a very noble undertaking. I do not believe that the little plaque at the bottom is appropriate on a public memorial, and so I would approve the plaque without the small panel at the bottom. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Duggan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I have also met several times with Mr. Reardon, and he's showed me the location of where the plaque will be mounted. And I don't have a problem with the small plaque at the bottom that has his family's name on it. There's already a large stone there that says Kiwanis on it, so that's something very similar. So,
There's nothing there that says Kiwanis.
Says Rotary.
I mean Rotary, I'm sorry, my mistake. So I would approve this as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Select Board Member Bernard.
Ken, I think it's fantastic for people that don't know what it is. I did meet with him, and I think it's wonderful, you taking the time and the effort and the expense of remembering our veterans. I am all for that, and I'm fine with the name at the bottom, too.
Thank you. I did have a chance to see it. It looks beautiful. I will tell you that while we were there, I noticed the dedication plaques by other civil and civic organizations. I noticed them other places around town. I have absolutely no issue with the small plaque identifying who donated it. I think it's appropriate. So, what is the will of the board? Accept the motion?
I vote that we accept the plaque and donated by the Reardon family, and also the smaller plaque at the bottom with their names on it.
I hear a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded to accept both plaques in the placement that Ken showed us. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
4-1. Thank you very much, Ken.
Thank you.
Appreciate the offer.
Thank you.
All right. Item 5, the board will hear from town engineer Stephen King regarding sewer betterment assessments. Mr. Town Manager, you want to kick us off?
I could tell a good joke while Steven's approaching the microphone, but I don't have any offhand, and he'll do a much better job describing this than I will.
Thank you. And if you might pull your microphone a little closer to you, sir.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks.
Good evening, Board. Steve King, Town Engineer for Danvers. I'm here before you tonight to review the betterment assessment for the Dyer Court Sewer Project. For some of the newer members, in 2019, the residents at Dyer Court, homeowners at Dyer Court, approached the board at the time and requested for the engineering division to look and put together a cost estimate to install a new sewer main on their street. 2 of the houses were still on existing septic systems, and with our discussions with the health department, if those septic systems were to be inspected per Title V regulations, they would not pass, and they would have to install new septic systems. We did have existing sewer on Holton Street that was viable to connect to. The engineering division put together a cost estimate, put together the warrant article that was approved at the 2020 annual town meeting. We put the project out to bid last summer, we constructed in the fall, and the project has been completed. The assessments that you see in front of you basically cover the cost of 50% of the main line installation, and then the homeowners pay 100% of the service line cost. And that's assessed on their tax bills based on the sewer acts in Danvers. And at that point, I'll take any questions that you may have regarding the betterment assessments.
Thank you. David, do you have any questions for Stephen?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions for Mr. King. So, 3 Dyer Court, they're having tough luck these days. The main line, that's already been installed?
Correct, yep.
And the connections have been made?
The project has all been completed. What the town is responsible for is to get the service line from the center of the main line sewer to the property line of the homeowner, so they may connect at a future point, but
All
they
right.
don't have to connect until they want to sell their property or until their Title V fails inspection.
All right, that's great. And I asked because I saw them paving Dyer Court the other day, so
Yep,
hate
that's-
to see them tear it all up again.
Correct, now that's
And
the
then-
last piece of the puzzle, it's all completed.
So you talked about the main line on Hobart Street. So how did the sewer line get down to the apartments that are down at the end along the railroad right-of-way?
So Holton Street is the connection that we made for the Dyer Court, 3 and 4 Dyer Court. There is the Tapleyville sewer intercept that runs behind 5 Dyer Court. That's where they connect into.
Oh, okay.
We did look at that possibility, but it would require taking easements from number 5 Dyer Court.
I see. Okay. I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Select Member Bernard?
Hi, Steve. Thank you for explaining that the 2019 date for the newer members, so we didn't know that. And those were some of my questions, too, about the main line already installed, so that's good. I'm for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Select Member Bennett?
All set, thank you.
And I think I started with you, Dave. You had said that this is kind of a tangential question, but you said that town's responsibility is from the sewer in the road, Centerline Road, to the person's property.
That's to install it, but once it's given over to once we're done with the project, the homeowner owns from the center of the sewer to the property line for the
Okay.
sewer services.
All right. Okay, thank you. I have no other questions. Is there any other question of the board? This is an update, so I don't believe it requires any form of vote. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
The board will hear an update from staff regarding the temporary outdoor seating and use regulations. Mr. Town Manager, do you?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Aaron Henry, our Director of Land Use and Community Services, is here tonight. Wanted to provide a brief update to the board on the success of the temporary outdoor use regs that were passed last summer, and to offer an update to the board in terms of what we expect throughout the rest of this season.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Well,
You did receive a memo, but just for a little background, I'll run over its contents at a high level, just so the folks at home have a little bit of idea of what we're talking about. Last June, the Select Board adopted a set of regulations to allow the town manager and staff to help businesses spread out and occupy parts of streets or other parts of their property in order to kind of stay open and spread their patrons out. We came back to you in November for a slight amendment to that, and we were hoping to come back to you this spring to let you know how things have been going. With the governor's announcement earlier this week, I think it's even more timely that we're here to talk about what's next with this set of regulations. But this spring, we saw renewed interest. Last year, we ended the season with 10 or so official, a few more in process. This spring, that got bumped up to over a dozen. I think currently we're at 15 fully permitted with a few more in process. So we think it's been very successful, and I think the question we have for the board this evening is this something that staff should look at trying to figure out how we do post-pandemic? We've been in touch with town council onto how to handle the rest of this season, and we think we have that covered. But I think there's been, for the most part, a lot of public support for these, and we've seen renewed interest from the business community. And I think the question we have for the board tonight is that something that staff should try to figure out how we can do more of post-pandemic? And then I will say the other piece of the update is one of the more interesting properties we've dealt with over the last year was the Breakaway up on Route 1. Had kind of an interesting spring with them last year as they moved concerts outside. We got a lot of concerns, a lot of back and forth with the business owner. I think we were able to get through the season last year successfully. This spring, concerts started back up. But with the governor's announcement, Breakaway will be going back indoors on Saturday, May 30th, or Saturday, May 29th, and kind of relinquishing the aspects of his outdoor permitting that relates to concerts. He does have some permission to expand seating out back on the patio, which will remain, but the concert setup will go away on Saturday, May 29th. So, and I won't say that was not successful. It was obviously just something so out of scale with the rest of the portfolio that took a lot more managing than we anticipated. But I think we made it through successfully. And again, the question we wanted some guidance from you tonight was, is this something we should investigate going forward? Staff is comfortable with that, but we want your permission before we devote staff time to it.
So if I could elaborate, to just add on to what Aaron said. He referenced a question of council, and I think the specific question of council, the authority that was granted by the board last summer was for staff to be making decisions to modify existing permits and licenses that would otherwise have to go through a public hearing process. And given that we were not meeting, and given that we were in the throes of the pandemic, it allowed us to be nimble in saying yes to things. So when it's anticipated that the governor will be lifting the emergency order June 15th, what evaporates on June 16th is staff's authority to make those decisions. So at that point, any and all modifications to existing permits and licenses come back to the board, and rightly so. The question to council about what happens to the existing approvals is that these businesses are entitled to make decisions based on valid approvals at the time of the decisions that they're making. In other words, if a restaurant has purchased space heaters and tables for the serving season, and the governor withdraws the emergency declaration on June 15th, their approval does not cease on June 16th. So there is a reasonable period of time, and in this case, because we're in New England, we have seasons, so we would be covered, according to council, through the season that we're in. And I think what Aaron what we're seeking is some guidance, because we have a fall town meeting coming up. Are there changes that have been made temporarily during this pandemic, well received, for example, sidewalk dining, et cetera, that this board may want to direct Aaron's staff to think about for a publicly vetted process this fall for minor changes to the regs? So just wanted to, that's what we're looking for, and we don't need specific guidance tonight, but we want to plant the seed. So.
Yeah. And we're working with the folks that are in process, because we want to be done with them before the 15th to try to keep that streamlined process alive for as long as possible.
I'll start. Comments, Select Board Member Duggan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm in support of the outdoor use. I think it may have contributed to continued viability of the businesses. They were having a difficult time with only allowing a few people inside. So I would support your effort to continue to research this. The only concern I would have is the impact on residents that may live nearby with live music outside.
Yeah.
It can be a bit much late in the evening. So that, other than that, I think it's great for, it's cosmopolitan to have food outside. I think people enjoy it, so I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Select Member Bernard?
Aaron, I'm in favor of it too, the outdoor seating, and I agree to let you and your staff monitor it. What is the hours at the Breakaway? Is there a time that they have to shut down?
Yep.
Is it 11?
10,
Oh, good.
10 PM.
Okay.
And so they'll get that for this weekend and next Friday.
Yep, but I think it's, I'm in favor of letting you and your staff, post-COVID, do some more research too.
Great.
And let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Select Board Member Bennett?
Thank you. I'm glad that we were able to do this last year for the restaurants, allowing them to get outside as soon as they could without having come before this board. We relinquished some authority to do that. But I think given the lifting of the emergency ban on June 15th, effective June 16th, any new applications should come before this board.
Agreed.
And alcohol licenses, common viculars license, entertainment license, et cetera, going forwards.
Yep.
And anybody that's up and running as of May 29th, we would certainly want them to continue under the current guidelines. But I think this document, the temporary outdoor seating and use regulations for local businesses, needs to go away. And any reference to the town manager making the approvals needs to cease June 16th.
Yep.
Okay, we understand that.
Yep.
Very good. And breakaway will be inside May 29th on.
Yes.
So I think that accomplishes some concerns that some neighbors have. We can certainly let our existing businesses continue, that's great. But going forwards, we are back to, and I don't like this already, the new normal, but it's the way of doing things going forwards. And I think that would work out very well. I do have a question that I'm trying to formulate. Anybody that's not outside now, do you think there's other people who are going to want to be outside?
I don't, it seems like the folks who want to take advantage of it this spring have identified themselves to us, so I don't anticipate anybody new coming in between now and June 15th or May 29th.
May 29th, yeah.
So we don't anticipate that, but I suppose it could happen if somebody catches wind that their window's closing, but we're just trying to clean up what's in the pipeline now and get everybody on the up and up and let
So
them have
if
their
somebody
season.
did come in on May 28th, you could get them before us on June 1st if the agenda's not posted, so I don't think that's effective.
I
Somebody
think we'd
comes
have
the
to talk a
27th.
little bit through about the details, but again, I don't think we're going to have anybody applying on Friday, June 28th for this. We've kind of shaken the tree.
Well, just for clarification, the governor has indicated relaxing restrictions on May 29th, but he's indicated that he would be most likely lifting the emergency order on June 15th.
Right.
So that would be the operative date.
Okay.
Not May 29th.
But realistically, I understand, if
Yep.
you're not doing it by Memorial Day, then
Right.
Okay.
you've been asleep,
Good.
so.
Oh, and so this document goes away? The temporary outdoor seating?
Well, I think it controls the permits that have been issued under it throughout the duration of this season, but I don't think we can accept any new applications under that document.
I would, and I should preface this by saying I'm not an attorney, but my understanding is from Dave DeLuca that effective June 15th, that document freezes. No longer, the authority for staff ends. There's a question, I guess, if staff offered an approval today under the temporary regs and needed to make a minor change to that on July 1st, would they then come before the board on August 17th, or would staff be authorized to make a minor adjustment to the approvals that are in place in the season that we're in? And I don't necessarily have an answer for that. That's an attorney question.
And then I would lean towards,
Staff would
if
be
somebody
cool.
wants to make a modification after the June 16th, it should come before the board.
And I think when it involves ABCC, that's going to probably be, we'll probably have clearer rules
Right.
around that, because I think ABC, I know we touched base, Kathy, I think they're in the works of issuing something.
Okay, so this changes. And perhaps you'll look at what we've done, and maybe if there needs to be clarification of zoning for a town meeting, that would be appropriate. And I'm sure if some of these restaurants are going to maintain the outdoor seating or want to, we're going to have to change the liquor licenses that they have to reflect.
Right, and I think that speaks to what
I think
Mr.
that's
Bartlett was
something we're
saying,
gonna
that
have
they
to work
get
through.
some window for the permit that they've given, but once they break this down, next year, they got to go through the regular process, and that's why we wanted to check in, was to make sure that if you want us investing time into figuring out how we can do something like this, it won't look exactly like this, but something like this, more through the regular, either a general bylaw or tweaks to the general zoning bylaw.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Select Board Member Mills, any questions?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I worked in restaurants for 11 years going through school, and I know that the restaurants in Danvers were really, really, really struggling and frightened at the beginning of this mess. And I think that Aaron and his colleagues and the town manager have done a superb job of attempting to assist those businesses to survive. And it wasn't to thrive, it was to survive during the COVID. I would support any exercise of discretion and any exercise of our governmental power that's lawful to let them continue to do what is in their best commercial interest for the remainder of this year up until next fall or the cold season. And to, I don't know what that means, but I think that anything that can be done to help them kind of make up for what has been lost, we ought to do as a community. And once again, the way our Danvers administrators have managed this, I say, is really a beautiful job. And otherwise, I don't disagree with anything that my colleagues have said here tonight. And so that's where I'm at on this.
Thank you very much. A couple of points I would want to make is COVID forced us to address what had been asked for in the past on a case-by-case basis. How can I set up tables outside? What can I do to to provide seating and meals outside, service outside? COVID forced it, and from that, we developed the outdoor seating regulations that are there now. And I agree, at the time, we needed staff to have the latitude to evolve it, to morph it, to change it, to modify it, as because you can't necessarily get it all right straight out of the gate. And in that same vein, to take action on behalf of the board, so that you didn't have to come back and people didn't have to wait. It was the right thing to do at the right time. We've mentioned one business, and I can tell you, because I know the owner well, that he said if he had not done what he did, if he was not allowed to have his concerts, which his venue is an entertainment venue. It is meant to have entertainment. It's not unlike Danversport, where they are a function and entertainment facility first that serves food. If he was not able to do what he did, he doesn't mind me saying this, he would be bankrupt. So he thanks the town for providing that opportunity. There were some complaints, though I understand the number was a small number of people complaining multiple times. There were also complaints at Endicott Grill, another facility that had outside music. But the management of that was you could only have outside music in those areas until 10 o'clock at night. The police often patrolled and affirmed. He stopped 5 minutes of 10 every single time. On Sundays, it was only 3 to 6. So I think we all have to consider the accommodations we had to make. What I'm understanding Mr. Henry saying here and the town manager is, as of June 15th, any new applications of that document, any modifications and any actions will come before the board for handling any requests or actions. We're rescinding our authority for the department heads to make those decisions, and it puts them in a difficult place sometimes. And the onus is on us, especially as we are responsible for common victuals license and for liquor licenses. We should be responsible if there's changes. And I would suggest that that's going to go through based on the will of the board until town meeting at the zoning town meeting adds language that adopts most of what you have, all of what you have, modified of what you have, but it's still a need. Regardless of COVID, people have been asking us, how can I have outside dining? What do I need to do? And so I think having some defined rules, regulations, affirmed right in the zoning board makes it a level playing field for everybody. It may or may not relate, but I'll ask you another kind of tangential question, which is, I'm excited about the pop-up park coming downtown. I understand that there was a drive to get matching funds to meet the grant application. Can you give us a little update on the pop-up park and how are we doing on the grant matching?
Well, thank you. Switching gears, proud to say that we met our matching goal today. Lots of many small donations, but a couple of individuals that contributed quite large donations, so we really appreciate all of the community support that those donations represent, large and small. Most of the materials have been ordered. There's, like everything else in COVID, there's a few things that are very hard to find right now, but almost everything has been ordered, and you're likely to see a soft opening Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you. So we did have a discussion about the subject at hand. People have offered their comments. Mr. Town Manager, do you think we need a motion, or do you understand the will of the board?
I think we understand. I think that I'll posit one of the more interesting questions we're going to face without an answer at this point. But the select board controls the right-of-way. As you'll recall, we approved scaffolding for People's Bank already this spring. So there's going to be a question that we have to find a solution to. If a business is before the planning board with a site plan, and part of that proposal involves outdoor dining in the right-of-way, there's going to be a question of who comes first. It would be inappropriate, and I'm using that term with air quotes, in the eyes of MGL, for a select board to be governing a planning board application through the use of the right-of-way beyond the scope of just the yes/no for the use of the right-of-way. And conversely, it would be inappropriate for a planning board to authorize use of a right-of-way, which is the jurisdiction of the select board. So there needs to be a way to marry those processes so that an application that's before the planning board will have some input or assurances from the select board that what's being proposed is going to be okay in terms of the use of right-of-way, and we're not, for lack of a better term, stepping on each other's toes. Right. So no solution tonight, but that's something that we're going to have to kind of vet as we move forward, specifically as we think about outdoor dining, because most of our downtown businesses don't have space where they can do something like that that would not involve use of at least a small portion of the public right-of-way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, moving on then. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. The board will vote to approve the sale of $19.61 million in general obligation refunding bonds relating to the existing school, water, drainage, and electric debt. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would invite our Director of Administration and Finance, Rodney Conley, to the microphone to share the good news with the board.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Through you, Mr. Chair. So in front of you tonight is a refunding opportunity that will save the town roughly $6.2 million over the life of the bonds. Our financial advisor, Hilltop...
I'm sorry, could you say that number again?
That'd be $6.2 million.
Thank you.
Yes. As noted with an exclamation point in your packet cover letter. So Hilltop, our financial advisor, brings these opportunities to us from time to time when they feel it's a viable option to refinance and we have bonds that are callable. These bonds in particular were financed in 2011, so this is our first opportunity to call them and refinance them. In the 10 years since, interest rates have come down significantly, as well as the town being upgraded to AAA. So the two came together for a great opportunity for some savings.
Thank you. Questions from the board. Select Member Bernard.
Perfect timing. Perfect. This is great. Congratulations, and keeping that AAA credit rating. You guys do a great job. Thank you.
Select Board Member Bennett.
I love using other people's money to borrow all this money and save money. It's marvelous. Thank you.
Thank you. Select Board Member Mills.
We spent a lot of money on Monday night, and so this will help make up for it. Thank you.
Select Board Member Duggan.
Just to thank Mr. Conley and his team for doing good work. Thank you.
I also want to echo the thanks of the savings will help the everyone in town. So, and I'm hoping your threshold is fairly low, and as you look at these in the future too, $6 million, that's an amazing amount of money. So, what is the will of the board? Do we have a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a motion to read here, and it's kind of lengthy, so
Feel free.
bear with me. In order to reduce interest costs, the treasurer is authorized to issue refunding bonds at one time or from time to time pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 21A of the general laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority to refund all the outstanding amount of the town's is $23,975,000 general obligation multiple purpose loan of 2011 bonds, Series A, dated July 7th, 2011, and maturing on July 1 in the years 2022 through 2036 inclusive, in the aggregate principal amount of $16,865,000 and $9,349,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2011 bonds, Series B, dated July 7th, 2011, maturing on July 1 in the years 2022 through 2036 inclusive, in the aggregate principal amount of $5,270,000, and that the proceeds of any refunding bonds issued pursuant to this vote shall be used to pay the principal, redemption premium, and interest on the refunded bonds and the costs of an issuance of the refunding bonds. I don't think we have to vote on that. We'll vote on all of them at the end.
I think you should read through to the end what we have. We're not going to vote on every one.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Through, please.
All right, so let me proceed. So that the sale of the $19,610,000 general obligation refunding bonds of the town dated May 27, 2021, known as the bonds of Bank of America Securities Incorporated at the price of $22,760,474.04, and the accrued interest is hereby approved and confirmed. The bonds shall be payable on July 1st of the years and in the principal amounts, and bear interest at the respective rates as presented in the table provided. That in connection with the marketing and the sale of the bonds, the preparation and the distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated April 27, 2021, and a final official statement dated May 6, 2021, known as the official statement, and each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Furthermore, that the bonds shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town upon such terms and conditions as are set forth in the official statement. In addition, to authorize the execution and delivery of a refunding escrow agreement to be dated May 27, 2021, between the town and U.S. Bank National Association as a refunding escrow agent. Furthermore, that the town treasurer and the select board be and are hereby authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure undertaken in compliance with SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bonds for the benefit of the holders of the bonds from time to time. Furthermore, that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and the bond counsel deem sufficient. And if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax-exempt status of the bonds to comply with relevant security laws. Furthermore, that any certificates or documents relating to the bonds, which are collectively known as the documents, may be executed in several counterparts, each in which shall be regarded as an original, and all of which shall constitute one and the same document. Delivery of an executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail in a PDF file or by other electronic transmission shall be effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page of such document. And electronic signatures on any of the documents shall be deemed original signatures for the purposes of the documents and all matters relating thereto, having the same legal effect as the original signatures. And furthermore, that each member of the Select Board, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them, and to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Select
could.
Board Duggan, that was your rookie hazing.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I also would be remiss if we didn't mention Jill Summit, our treasurer collector, who really did yeoman's work in executing this refunding along with Hilltop and our bond counsel. So,
Thank you very much. Thank you to your whole team.
And with all due respect to bond counsel, I'm pretty sure they're paid by the word and not by the hour.
All right, the board will discuss their individual priorities drawn from the Welcoming Committee Working Group's final report. Mr. Town Manager, do you want to kick us off?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You did receive at the April 20th meeting a copy of the report that was produced by the 15-member Welcoming Community Working Group. I took a look around the room, and it looks like 7 of the 15 members, including 2 Select Board members, are actually in attendance tonight. Chairman Bennett at the time asked the board to spend some time with the document and think about it so that we could have a discussion this evening about what the individual and collective priorities from among the 18 recommendations made by the group were. And all I would really offer to tee this off is that these 18 recommendations really run the gamut from individual actions to community-wide events. There are certainly some items in this report that outside groups may take and implement with or without initiative from the town, but certainly some of the items in this report require a considerable investment of time and resources by the town, and in that regard, I think the group and certainly myself as a town manager are interested in knowing what the board's priorities are and what their thoughts are. So with that, I would hand it back.
Thank you very much. I understand we have members of the committee here. The board has all received the binder with suggestions, and I can say that the committee itself tried to be very careful to not, though they have numbers, they are not ranked. They aren't, this is more important, one's more important than 2, and so on and so forth. I welcome at this point, because of the hard work they put into it, any comments by any members of the committee who wish to speak to any of the particular items that were in the recommendations in section 2. Is there anybody who'd like to speak tonight or wait for questions? Seeing no one jump up and run to the microphone, I'll start with Selectman Bennett.
Thank you. So I did read this a couple of times, and first time I read it, I went back and circled areas that I thought we could start on. realizing that there's some 18 different items here, it's not reasonable to try to do them all at once. When you set goals, they have to be reasonable, attainable, and with consensus from the stakeholders. In a minute, I'm going to read off the ones that I had circled, and with the town manager's permission, I'll mention the ones that you and I discussed, where they overlap, just so we get a sense as we go through this process, we can keep track of the ones that we most think is important. But I'll start with number 10, to create a director of equity and inclusion position to work on training, recruitment, staff support, community events, outreach, grant funding, communication. And I'm not sure if that should really be a first action item or a second action item once we get established and we have a direction that we want to go in. To get somebody in place without a direction, without clear goals, I haven't decided on. So I just put that out there, that number 10, is it the place to begin or is it a place to jump in afterwards? But just for sake of keep it simple, the ones that I circled are number 2. Do you want me to give information on them?
If you wouldn't mind.
No, incorporate multicultural DEI elements into established local events. Cross-pollinate school, international food Friday, schools, international events. I think that cultural events, summer concert series brings people together.
Thank you.
Number 5, document and communicate the good work first responders are already doing. Engage, support both the community at large as well as marginalized groups, and the town manager agreed on that one. Number 11, compile demographic information on the town workforce, town meeting boards, committee, recruit candidates broadly to ensure local government reflects the community it serves. Citizens Academy, and need to know who we're dealing with in order to be successful. Number 12, and the town manager agreed with that one. Number 12, review internal structures, processes, policies, regulations. Always important to review what you're doing now, what you can do better. If you're doing something well, continue doing it. If it's not working, drop it and try something different. And the town manager agreed with that one. 13, provide staff and volunteers with relevant training, support, professional development. Always important to keep learning, being trained, improving yourself, learn a new skill. Address, again, bias, fair and impartial policing, restorative justice, trainings, again, very important. 15, under recognition, consider establishing a first responder week to recognize local first responders, including all the groups. Remember to say thank you. Number 16, ask the town manager to develop a general flag policy, including designated sites and times. That's what brought us to this point, is flags. And the town manager agreed with that item. Consider flying a national law enforcement and fallen firefighters memorial flags during First Responder Week. So those are the ones that the town manager and I agreed on, plus the others that I have. And I'll just tell you the town manager, unless you want to speak to the others, Steve.
At this
We
time.
discussed this the other day. Under dialogue and engagement, he liked number 3, the sign campaign for businesses. Under communication, number 7, increase police-citizen interaction. And I agree with that. It's important to interact with everybody. He'd like number 9, to support a new program whereby town employees will be admitted and encouraged to spend up to 2 or 3 days per year volunteering with local charitable, nonprofit, social service organizations. Obviously, in Kiwanis, we have one day where we go out and clean up the rail trail or some other project in Endicott Park, or do some service in Kiwanis that's ingrained in our culture. So that certainly is a good thing to do. Under training, he liked to create a director of equity, and again, I already spoke to that. And he liked number 17 under recognition, engage in the process to develop and design a symbol unique to Danvers. I don't know that that has to be first thing out of the box myself, but certainly something to do in the process. So given all these items, 18 of them, I think we should kind of, I hope my fellow select board members have narrowed it down and we can come up with 5, 6, or 8 areas to start in. Well, those are my comments.
Thank you. Selectman Mills, your thoughts?
I think the establishment of this working group was pretty much a stroke of courage and genius by the town manager last September when we had the insurrection on the lawn in front of my house at the town hall. I think the group of people who made up the working group was superbly chosen and selected for this work. I don't have any favorites among the items that are listed here as potential priorities. I do note that the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee, unfortunately, is meeting tonight at 7 o'clock, and I think that it's important to solicit input from that committee that is very carefully attentive to the matters that are under study here in the working group. So I'm sorry that these meetings they conflict, and that no matter what we do, I hope that at the conclusion of our discussion tonight, we can continue this matter for further discussion and solicit from the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee any comments that they have, preferably initially in writing, but also to then come to our next meeting when this can be discussed. I can't find a single item here that I don't think is important, because I think they're all important. And I think the report generally was well done, although I had some concern about what I thought were deficiencies in the history of how this working group had to come about as a result of things happening in September of 2020 in our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Member Duggan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few comments. First, I was here in this room on April 20th for the presentation by the working group and was quite impressed with the obvious amount of work that had gone into it. And just preface selecting an area here to concentrate on, this, the way we got here was not because of something that people in Danvers did. I think it was more of the rhetoric and the vitriol that came out of the previous administration in D.C. This is something that communities across the country are dealing with because the atmosphere has become so charged that people have become divisive. They don't understand how to appropriately engage in dialogue. So with that said, I'm proud that we were able to point out that the flag wasn't, taking the flag down was not a insult to the firemen or the police departments here or anywhere else. It was because the flag had taken on a different meaning, because of groups took that flag and repurposed it. And so I'm proud that the town staff saw that the flag needed to be taken off the truck. That's important for these types of situations where if you see something that's not right, that you don't turn the other way, that you deal with it. And so I thought that the town manager made the appropriate move, and I'm sorry that he received so much backlash from that. It's kind of an embarrassment for the town. So that this document here is going to kind of take us to a better place, I think. So I'm just going to speak to number 13, which talks about providing staff and volunteers with training. I think this ties in very well with the code of conduct that we discussed last time. That really we need to show respect for everyone. We're kind of all in this together. And so I think specifically for school-aged children, they're the ones that see this horrible behavior by our leaders, and they're impressionable and think that maybe that's kind of a normal way to interact. So why it says staff and volunteers to receive training, but I think the schools should have the focus. I think I'm not suggesting that older people are a lost cause, but certainly children, it's not too late to kind of, if they're exhibiting that kind of behavior, to kind of get them back on track. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
So that would be number 13, and was there another number?
No, I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Select Member Bernard.
Thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed this group. It was fantastic. We had a great dialogue. We had some great ideas, some great brainstormings. I love the word bank, that the town put together. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. If I were to pick some important numbers to finalize this, I do like number 2, the multicultural, establish the local events and look for new ways to the schools. I like that. International food on Fridays. I like working with the local businesses because I think that's what keeps Danvers good, is let's hear from our businesses. Number 4. And I like number 7. I like to increase the police-citizen interaction. I think it's nice that, the kids see the police in a good manner instead of always being afraid, when a police officer comes, have the police maybe, go to the schools a little bit more around town to the other events. I like that. I love number 9. I think where the town employees should be permitted and encouraged to spend. I like the 2 or 3 days volunteering. I think it should be paid volunteering days that they go out and do that, because that's important for community service. I also like policies. Like Dan said, you got to have the correct policies, number 12. And the training, very important, number 13, provide staff and volunteers with training and support. That's important to me. And I also like number 16, to ask the town manager to develop a general flag policy. I think that's important also. And I also like Steve's idea of having a symbol unique to Danvers, to recognize Danvers. Danvers strong. And I do like the idea of flying the flags. I'm going to say it again. This is the flag that I wanted. So I think that's something that maybe we could work on. But I just can't believe, what happened during that time was horrible, but to have us all come together and come to solutions like this, I think it's wonderful. And I thank everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've written down what people have been discussing, and I have some of my own that I prefer. And prefer isn't the right word, but you have to address this a bite at a time. You can't embrace every one of these. They're all great ideas. There was some common discussion. First and foremost, mine is, and I kind of categorize these. There's personnel issues that were reflected in number 16. Several of us mentioned 16, that being the creation of a, number 16 is the flag policy. So there's some that are policy issues, there are some that are personnel issues, there are some that are communication issues, and there's some that are assess and review and communicate actions. I'm not sure that all of these are on the town employees to do, and would suggest that the Human Rights and Inclusion Group certainly could embrace some of these. if they're not being actively pursued by the town management, as things that they want to pursue too, working in conjunction with the town, obviously. For me, one of the reasons we got here, obviously, is the situations that happened in September of last year. And I think that while the select board looks at the Town Manager Act as, as the defining principle that we all addressed, I think having a clear flag policy is probably a very straightforward activity, and would suggest that that's probably one of the very first things that the town management can do is, and I put that in the policy category. Several of us have mentioned that as well. Then I look to some of the personnel issue, and when I say personnel, this will be things that have to be done with or with the support of personnel. I think number 10, I think we need to create a director of equity and inclusion. I think that in today's day and age, I don't think we have to define what we want and then find someone. I think there are seasoned professionals who know how to do this. In my company, they are a director in human resources. It's part of human resources. I would ask that be one of the top considerations. And again, several of us mentioned it. Dan mentioned it as his first one. I'm mentioning it as number 2. I think that should be a consideration, and that may be longer term. I'm not suggesting we go out and hire someone tomorrow. We do have a budget. We do have planning to do, but I think that should be on the radar, and we should start looking at what skill sets we would want if we were to hire someone in that role. And I'm not suggesting that's even a full-time role, but it should have scope and direction and identified and definable results. And some of those results may be some of the other ones people mentioned. Dan mentioned, and I agree, training and organization, number 11, and number 13 are two of the ones I'm sorry, 11 and 12. 11 being compile demographic information about the town's workforce, 12 being review internal structures. That's assess, review, and balance. And again, reviewing internal structures and compiling demographics, that seems to flow into a human resources directed activity. And I think we need to be able to answer the question, what does our workforce look like? What's the diversity in that workforce? Can we answer the question, and I'm not suggesting anything by these questions, they're just samples or examples. Do we have a male-heavy management staff? Do we have whatever might be the question that comes at us? Do we have what should be demographic information that we should be able to respond and assess and decide if there's actions that have to be taken to define some more balance if we see a disproportionate balance or not. The other thing that I think is important is communication. I think that the communications identified in number 5 and number 7, and I'll go back to those to let people know because they don't have it in front of them. Document and communicate the good work that's already been out there. When I was in the working groups and we were talking about this, people who do their day-to-day work don't realize that there are fresh, or may not recognize that there are fresh eyes looking at them on a cyclical basis. I know the officers that I grew up with in the town. I know I have a general feeling about all of the departments and the people who run the departments and so on and so forth because I'm in a unique position. But I would think that long-term citizens have the same. But to be able to say, these are the things we do, these are the how we react. I want to, not to point out any, but we talked about community policing and we talked about, recent legislation. And I was pleased to reaffirm in my hearing that our accreditation addresses many of the issues that are being discussed nationally. Certain chokeholds or whatever it may be, that our accreditation has long since passed that point. And I'm not sure that necessarily gets promoted unless it's, unless it's a focus. So I would like to hear about the things we do, how we react, how we consider ourselves a town that we would aspire to, and have we already reached some of these goals already, and people should know about it. So I think number 5 is important as well, and I noted Dan also noted number 5 too. And number 7. And again, that's not to pick on police, but maybe there is a, we used to do the coffee with a cop. And maybe we model another program after that. And it's not just police, it's also, other safety people, the firefighters, the, EMTs, whatever it is that, or a line worker in DPW or an electric line worker. They may just, give them an hour to sit down, talk about what they do to anybody who has a question. So those are the primary ones I was looking at. And then back to recognition. There were people who came to us and said, we want certain recognition. We're looking for that. However, that wasn't necessarily the people who were those that they wanted to recognize. So I think one of the important things that happened in the workshops is the people for whom recognition was being requested were asked, what do they want for recognition? Do they want a parade? Do they want a flag flown? Do they want a specific flag flown? What is it they want? And it went back to the, to the people in each of the primary departments. And the thing that the workshop heard back was, we'd like to do our job. We don't specifically need a parade. We don't specifically need a certain flag on a certain date of a certain design. We just, so I think that some of these under recognition is broad enough to meet their goals, not necessarily the people who were suggesting or pushing for certain recommendations. So I like number 15, which is to establish a first responder week or recognition of some form. And I've already spoken to the flag policy because that transcends this discussion. There may be other flags that we don't see on the horizon yet. There may be other recognition we don't see on the horizon yet. And so I think that's a general policy that we should adopt. And then I do believe considering flying the National Law Enforcement and Fallen Firefighters memorial flags is an appropriate thing to do. We have several flagpoles in front of Town Hall, and so maybe Memorial Day in the future or some other date that we choose. I would like to keep that separate because one should be a celebration and one should be a remembrance. Those are my primary ones, but again, these are tools in the toolbox, and every tool here has value. You can only take so many, you only get 2 hands. You can only take so many tools out at once and use them and work with them. So I think, Dan, did you have some comments?
If I may, I've been listening to everybody's comments. I
Yep.
just kept a scorecard, if I may.
Sure.
So number 12 and 16 received 4
Yep.
votes of confidence, if you will. Those were the top 2.
Yep.
Followed by, with 3 votes, if you will, number 11, 7, 5, 13. Then the following with 2, number 10, 9, 2, 17, 15, and 18.
Okay.
So actually, it's 12 out of 18 that got some level of
Some
support.
support, yep.
With a level of support going in the top 6 that I mentioned, 12, 11, 7, 5, 13, and 16. So if the chair thinks it's appropriate to instruct the town manager to put together a working plan based on those 6.
I think so. Actually, I would broaden it a little bit. I think that you're right. We should ask the town manager to come up with a working plan. But as I suggested, that there are categories of things that may be achieved all at once. There may be synergy. If it's a personnel issue or if it's a review and respond issue, some of those might, even though one might be further down, putting them together makes logistical sense. So yes, I think I saw the clerk write down your order. And I think you would be right to suggest, and I support that the town manager look at those in order, see if there's some that, for synergy reasons, might be bundled together.
Yep.
And come back and discuss the options. And the option may be not the town hall solves it, not the town administration solves it, that there's outreach to the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee, or there's outreach to DCAT. For example, we couldn't on our own communicate some of the things we want to communicate. If we want to have if we want to have coffee with a cop, or if we want to present a video of the good things we do now, the things that are supportive of the concept here.
Well, you're certainly right. We're going to include the entire community
Yep.
as we go through with this process.
Yep.
And I'm sure that a lot of these that we've checked off will help accomplish that.
Yep.
And I think that's the overall goal, is to talk to all the stakeholders out in the community to see how they feel, what they think, what direction we want to go in. But I just suggest if we take some of these top ones here, just to get a start, get an outline and a direction, and this board can come back and revisit it. I like David Mills' thought to have the Human Rights Inclusion Committee come to make a presentation to us and see how we can incorporate their thoughts in with these items. And I'm sure some of the members of the working group might have some suggestions for us tonight, maybe not.
So, and again, I'll offer up again to those people who worked so hard on this for so long, and I appreciate that, and others in the audience who might have some ideas about what, Mike, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly appreciate all the enthusiasm in the room for presentations and the recommendations that we've made. I can also say that out in the community, there's a great deal of enthusiasm as well. I've had 3 or 4 calls, people volunteering to do different things, having ideas, and willing to invest time, energy, maybe even money to make those things happen. And as a community, we've always been an activist community. We're known for our citizen committees as they relate to select board activities, like the committee reporting, whose report you're discussing tonight. And there are multiple other social and community groups that are working and have a mission and a vision that they would like to see come forward. My major concern right now has to do with developing a focal point where people of interest can have a target person to go to, or a target group to go to, and just as importantly, where a person can coordinate and reach out to the different members in the different communities or the different groups within our community. Everybody in this room knows how to run a program, set a committee, volunteer, and we could probably do a pretty good job with it. But that's exactly what we don't want to happen. Inclusion is the key, reaching out and bringing in new people. And so in a roundabout way, I'm advocating for that directorship position, perhaps not a separate hire right now. As you'd mentioned, it can be done through a human resources department or an individual or a small group of individuals whose responsibility is to gather the input from the community and to reach out to coordinate those activities and those interests with others. And I worry a little that there's going to be a lot of enthusiasm. We'll have 2 or 3 great projects, and then they will peter out because the people that are involved in it move on, have other interests, come on or off committees that they're involved with. And I would like to see, ultimately, these efforts and these programs institutionalized. Number 8 wasn't a big hit, but that was actually my favorite in terms of working with DCAT and working with the school with videos and social media. And I actually did reach out to 3 different people, got a bunch of great ideas, and those 3 people all would move in a slightly different direction. So we would make progress, but it wouldn't be coordinated progress. And I think if we are able to codify a position, an individual, a contact point. And I'm sure the town manager will be willing to do it, but he's going to be pulled in 50 different directions with everything else that's going on. So I think we need someone a little more specific than that, and I would encourage the discussion to move in that direction to set up some type of organization. I think it should be within town hall. I think it should be part of a job description, if not an individual person, in order to set these objectives and move forward and coordinate all these efforts. So, but, I mean, I think this is terrific. I appreciate the comments from board members and the enthusiasm, and I think we can do some really good things. You know, I look at that Decatur, I just look at that Decatur article. I'd love for us to get into a position like that, where we have that much enthusiasm, that much participation, and that much progress and acceptance with diversity and equity and inclusion. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the audience, would you like to speak? Please.
Hello. My name is Lisa Silva. I was not on the working group, but I am a...
Into the microphone, yeah.
Pull it down. I'm
There you
short,
go.
sorry. I am a town meeting member in Precinct 7. I'm also a member of the North Shore NAACP, and I run a community group that is apart from town and the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee, but we do a lot of trying to get diversity and equity into our community. And I definitely think that hiring a director of equity and inclusion would be a great idea for this town. Some surrounding towns have recently done this as well, just to show where Danvers is in the North Shore community. Swampscott recently hired one. The city of Lynn actually just hired one the other day. The city of Beverly has hired one. Salem has a race equity task force, which is pretty, if you look on the website, there's some people from North Shore Community College and other diversity and inclusion people that are on that task force. Hamilton Wenham has a human rights coalition, and they're actually doing an event in about a week that is understanding flag protest from Black Lives Matter to Thin Blue Line, which is pretty relevant to this discussion. And as far as the order goes, I do believe that a diversity and inclusion person or director or position within the town could take on some of the what do we want to do as opposed to doing it in the reverse order, because this is something that people are now going to school for, they're getting training for. It's being done in lots of communities in the North Shore, and I would love to see Danvers join them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Please. You can use either microphone, whichever you're comfortable at.
Hi, my name is Christy Fair, and I am a resident in Precinct 7, and I'm also on the Board of Library Trustees. And I mostly wanted to say thank you to everybody who was on this committee, working committee. I actually did read the whole thing because I am a librarian. But I also wanted to reiterate other people's points that I think that having a director or position for diversity, equity, and inclusion really should be the first move for our community. It's a focal point, and it would help coordinate all the other efforts within the report. Again, thank you so much for allowing us to even speak, and for all the work that everybody did.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment to that?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, I agree that's an important step. Timing is where my concern is. Do we put everything on hold till we get this person? Or can we move forwards while we're trying to find a person to help us?
So I would recommend that we we aren't single-threaded. Please, why don't you give your comments and then I'll,
Nova Salmon, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I was pretty much just going to reiterate what everyone else has been saying, that I also agree that the director is an important first-ish step if we consider that we work towards some things that we can do without a director. Some of these things do not need one person to coordinate. So we could work on some, but I think the director should be a priority, that we shouldn't wait till next year, because I'm going to reiterate what Mike said about the enthusiasm being here now. And, people that volunteer for things only have so much time or effort, or, they get pulled in different directions. So to have a person that it is their goal to do this is very helpful. It'll keep people together doing it, and if it slows down, they're there to bring it back up and pull it back in. Okay, that's all. So, yes, just to reiterate what everyone else said. Thank you.
thank you.
Sue.
I would say to your point, Selectman Bennett, and to the others that were made, I think that we do need to identify a point person now while we solve for the longer solution. Now, we keep talking about hiring a person to do this, making it a director of, so on and so forth. There are other opportunities. First of all, we have HR specialists. HR generalists helped this committee. And it wasn't that they helped the committee by taking notes or even facilitating meetings, but was an active participant in the development of what is presented. I don't want to throw that person under the bus, and certainly that's a decision the town manager will make. We also consider position sharing. We do it with some other positions like dog catcher, or like some other positions where multiple communities band together to solve a specific, and maybe that's a transition point until we can get our own, until whatever happens. Can we partner with a community like Salem or Beverly that has a dedicated role to this? We don't have to reinvent the wheel on our own. We can work with other towns and communities and split the load, as it were, and benefit from both. So I would agree that it would be prudent to capture the enthusiasm in a bottle that we have now, and maybe you can consider who's in the right people, but we have seen some skill set in the workings of the community, of the workshop, of the working group, that may be appropriate, and then also talk about partnering until a point that we feel we either need our own or benefit from partnering with another community. But I also don't think that it's single-threaded. I think that there are things that we've identified that the town manager could literally do in a couple of days. For example, provide the opportunity for town employees to donate time. Pretty straightforward, not a lot of committee work, not a lot of discussion. There's certainly logistics and maybe a little bit of discussions regarding unions or not, maybe not. But those are some things that can be grappled with ahead of actually having a person in a role. Those are my thoughts. Any other thoughts in the audience? Any other thoughts from the board members? Then I'll turn it to the town manager to offer any thoughts he has, based on what we're hearing.
Thank you. I don't have anything prepared. I mean, I've been listening attentively and taking plenty of my own notes. I think some of the things I had indicated, we had a sort of grassroots effort at the staff level, started asking and thinking about some of these things more than probably a year and a half ago now. So pre-pandemic, community conversation last fall. Some of the things are fairly straightforward. There are flag policies out there that could be used as templates to bring back for discussion with this board. That's not a long-term project. That's a pretty straightforward project. The volunteer days, believe it or not, are probably one of the more complicated items in this plan. I'm going to give a shout out. Pam Parkinson, our Senior and Social Services Director, actually floated this idea a couple years ago, so it's not a new idea. And then I'm going to out Lieutenant Sullivan, who's here, independently with no discussion prior. He was a member of our welcoming community group. He independently proposed the same idea, and I'm pretty sure he didn't talk to Pam ahead of time. But there are some complications. We need to sort of vet who those organizations would be, what type of work the employees would do, working through it with the unions to make sure that we're being consistent. And so I think, to kind of echo what I said at the start of this discussion, there are some items in here that we can, through David with the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee, they may want to take some of these ideas and run with them. There are some items here where we could set up a discussion with the Greater Beverly Chamber of Commerce to talk about some of the ideas in here with respect to the business community. That doesn't require waiting for a director. But there are some items in here that absolutely require time and attention. And I think to sort of marry the two ideas that I heard, there are some things we can get some momentum going. But I think one of the things we'll take from this meeting is to meet at the staff level to start thinking about how a position like that would fit in to the organization and into the budget that we're working with. I do think, so again, thinking out loud right now, I think that this document is online, so it's there for anybody who wants to read it and think about it. I do expect to have follow-up conversations with Select Board Member Mills about the role that the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee may like to play in advancing some of this. Certainly I've started discussing, bless you, some of these ideas with Lisa Dana on the school side, because there's certainly some overlap between the recommendations that came from the group and what's going on in the schools. So I think the fact that there's no easy answer right now is kind of the point. I mean, this is to do this type of work right, I think, is an ongoing effort and requires a lot of hands. So this is helpful feedback. I think what I'll do is kind of think about the notes that I've taken, probably have follow-up conversations with some of you, and then I can report back probably on a regular, maybe as a standing item with this board to keep you up to date in terms of where we are and what's going on.
Great. It would be too soon to ask you to have something for our next June 1st meeting, but perhaps at the end of June, just an update where we are, the direction you're taking, and hopefully the identification of someone to act as a focal point, as Mr. Powers suggests, and others have, even temporary, so that we can know who to go to, know who we might hear from, things of that nature. Thank you, and again, thank you to all the people who worked on the committee. We really do appreciate everybody's input. Thank you very, very much. We'll move on. At this time, the town manager will report to the board on various items of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can check the first off my list. I was going to update the board on the fact that we surpassed our $8,000 fundraising goal today for the pop-up park. I would like to publicly acknowledge the hard work that Georgia Pendergast and Nick Campion. George is our staff planner, and Nick is our assistant recreation director. They put a lot of work into this. So we did have several sizable donations. We had a $1,000 donation made anonymously to get us over the top. And June 24th, Georgia and Chuck Farrell will start prepping the parking lot. We have a local artist who's going to beautify the barriers and really kind of breathe some life into it. So you'll start to see the tables and the string lights and some of the activities. And as Mr. Henry indicated, Memorial Day, we will see a soft opening for that. So that is exciting. Another fun piece, I had the privilege of participating in an interview yesterday with Erica Moretti from Endicott Park. Chronicle is going to be doing a feature on Endicott Park and Glen Magna, which will air in the next couple of weeks. So that was a lot of fun, a beautiful day to go and meet with the crew there. And Erica is she's a bundle of enthusiasm and a fount of knowledge with respect to the park. She runs terrific programming there, and she was very excited. Chris Sanborn, our Director of Natural Resources, was very excited for this opportunity to kind of showcase the great things that are happening at the park. Select Board Member Duggan had a question at the last meeting about the proposed gas plant in Peabody. Most of you have probably seen that since that last meeting, MWEC has paused that project. It's under review. We had heard, I learned this from DPW, that a long time ago, a concept like this was proposed, but we never had any formal notification about the project. Anybody who wishes to comment on the project, I think if the MWEC website, which is mmwec.org, mmwec.org, you can find the project there, and there's a way to make comments on that project. So I guess to Select Board Member Duggan or any other members who may have heard from constituents, we would direct them to the MWEC website, and there's an opportunity there to be part of the record with respect to that proposed project. You should have received an invitation from Ann Freitas for a tour of the nearly complete Smith School. I believe that's for next Wednesday, the 25th, if I'm getting that correct, 10 a.m.
That's correct.
Meeting at the front door of the new school. And the school building committee will have a brief meeting that day, but invitations have gone out to the major boards who had a hand in guiding that project through the feasibility and approval process and into construction. I said the 25th, but I probably got it wrong because I didn't check my calendar
It's
first.
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Thank you. Wednesday the 26th. Brief staffing update. Pleased to report that our new building commissioner will be starting on June 1st. Jim Butler is the deputy director up in Gloucester, and we had several rounds of interviews with him and some other candidates, made him an offer that he's accepted. Pete Swindell is doing yeoman's work. I guess I've heard that term 3 times tonight. He truly is doing yeoman's work right now to keep things moving forward. It's a very busy time of year in that office, and getting Jim is coming from a very busy office, so he'll be able to hit the ground running and help out Pete as we start to recruit the second position for that office. And we are currently waiting on results from the civil service for the captain and chief assessments that we conducted in April 4 with the police department. So I'm thinking that probably by the beginning of June, we should get those results in hand. So certainly, may not be for June 1st, but certainly by the end of the month, that process should be wrapped up. You all got an update, were copied on an update that went out to staff the day before we announced it publicly, but with the governor's announcement this past Monday about the lifting of restrictions on May 29th. Now, we will be fully reopening on June 1st, which is the Tuesday after Memorial Day. So we're working with staff to make final preparations. And I think there's, a little anxiety because it's been a long time, but more enthusiasm than anything else to kind of get into the next chapter. And I'm like a broken record. I keep telling people the new normal is not going to be the same as the old normal. We will undoubtedly run into some bumps and hit some setbacks and face some challenges, but we're certainly better equipped now to deal with those than we were a year and a half ago. Just briefly, you received in your packets tonight applications from 2 candidates for the Open Housing Authority seat. That is a board appointment, and the process that was prescribed by the state was to advertise the opportunity to tenants of the various properties. These 2 tenants have applied. Both come highly recommended, and it's really up to the board how they would like to proceed. Typically, when we have board or committee openings for using like the airport commission, for example, we'd have the candidates come in and introduce themselves to the board. So that would, I guess, if there was a request for a recommendation, we would recommend bringing the candidates in on the June 1st meeting to introduce themselves to the board. And ultimately, the board has to choose one of these candidates to serve in that open seat.
So before we move on, I'll ask if that's the will of the board is to ask the candidates to come before us on June 1st.
Just the fairness and transparency, I know one of the applicant and not the other, so it wouldn't be fair on me to vote.
Well, you're voting to have them come before us so that
Right,
we
so
can
I'm
all
just
learn
saying-
about it.
Right, so I would approve.
You wouldn't take a vote tonight on the application?
no.
So I'm asking if you
I'd
want to
like to
have...
meet both candidates.
Great, thank you. I think that's the will of the board, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you. And then the last item I have, I'm sure Mr. Chairman, you'll probably bring up, and that is our, the date of the second June meeting?
Yes, I will bring
Okay,
that up.
Good, and then I'm all set. That's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the town manager on the items that he raised?
Oh, if I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Will we meet here or back at Town Hall in June?
Thank you, and actually, I forgot one other item, so I'll address that, and then I'll raise the other one. So, June 1st will be the first day that we are reopened to the public. I think that if the board wanted to meet in Town Hall on that night, that would be eminently doable. So if we'd like to stop meeting in this cavernous space and go back to the Toomey Room, we could certainly do it on June 1st.
Mr. Chairman, what do you prefer?
My preference is to be there when we reopen. So if it's not uncomfortable for the board members, I would like to suggest that we have our next meeting back at Town Hall in the
time?
Dan Toomey Room.
What time, God?
Do you have a ribbon at the door that we can cut?
No.
No?
I know I don't know which pictures we ended up using on social media, but we had someone from the clerk's office was kind enough to pose for some fun photos about the grand reopening, so.
So Selectman Mills did ask what time. I am comfortable continuing on at 6 o'clock, but we have a new member and we are opening up. Right now, I can do 6 o'clock because I work from home. Is 6 o'clock still a good time to start the meetings? I'll ask.
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
You're all set with that? Okay.
Yes, fine with me.
6 o'clock? All right, we'll continue 6 o'clock until we find that we have to start commuting again. Great.
The other item I forgot to mention was actually the one that I handed out as we walked in the door today, and that was the board, the select board, and I see we need to update the header here, but the select board appointments for the current fiscal year, and then assigning seats for the upcoming fiscal year. So we're still a month plus away from the start of the fiscal year. We have people assigned currently, but certainly by the first meeting in June, if the board was ready to sort of reshuffle the deck, as it were.
Sure. So I was going to bring this up. There are committee meetings that will continue on until, before June 1st. So as we look at this document, the bottom half for discussion, I realize some of us have been on certain boards and commissions for quite a while. Some of us have loved them or are willing to relinquish some of them, as it were. I'll just walk down the list and ask if people have an interest, raise your hands, shout out, and then we'll try to work together and figure this out tonight.
You need to add Preservation Commission, I believe.
Thank you, I will do so.
Correct, Mr. Town Manager?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank
And that is
you.
a voting member.
Great. So let's start with the Affordable Housing Committee. I will tell you that I'm still interested in participating in that. Maureen is currently a second member, non-voting. Is there anybody who has a desire to race for that one? All right, I'll stay on. Maureen, would you be willing to continue on?
Yes.
Great. The Agricultural Commission has been inactive for over 5 years. At this point, I don't see any reason to appoint someone to it. It's until such a time that we need to, we can then figure it out. The Budget Subcommittee is the chair. Cable Advisory Committee. Are you still interested in participating in that?
I'm not the least bit interested, but they're lovely people, and I'm willing to do it.
Is there anybody else who offer to do it? Is there, do we have to have a secret ballot? David, thank you for your willingness to continue. Danvers Cares, Mr. Bennett.
I'd like to stay.
Okay. I realize that this kind of puts, Selectman Duggett behind the 8 ball, but please feel free to raise your hand, Matt, if you want any of these. Human Rights and Inclusion.
I'd like to continue.
David would like to continue. And I'm going to suggest, as we did with the Affordable Housing Committee, while we have certain voting members, I think participation by other selectmen is certainly appropriate. They may not be a voting member, but, as we come down to the Rail Trail Advisory Committee, I know Maureen's on that.
I'd like to be a non-voting voting member? with
Yeah,
me?
I'd like to be.
Yeah, have Matt join me with that one?
Yes.
Okay.
So Maureen will be the, are you a voting member on that, Maureen? Or is it
No,
just
I'm not.
advisory?
No, just advisory, yeah.
I do think, I would, if, I would ask for feedback from the board and worked through these committees with the various staff liaisons to try to determine which were voting and which were not. So I believe that the document is accurate.
Okay.
So if it says voting, it's voting.
Thank you.
If it's
Okay.
if it's neutral, it means it's a non-vote, it's a liaison position.
Great. So I know the many, many years that Matt put in and Dan put in, and the fact that Maureen's on there now, and I respect anybody's willingness to serve. So we'll add Matt to the Rail Trail Advisory. I currently serve on the River Committee, would do so again, as I have no reason to jettison that, but if there is someone who would like to be on the River Committee, I'll certainly entertain walking away. No volunteers? All right, then I will continue on. Smith School, Maureen is a voting member of the Smith School. Bill Clark was a voting member, though it notes here there's no need to replace. Is that because that committee is coming to its end?
I think at some point early in FY '22, that committee will dissolve. So I think having one member of the select board is appropriate as
I'd
we
still like to
Yeah.
keep that.
Okay, we'll keep it that
We
way.
could certainly, that's not to say that the board doesn't, if there's a second member who wishes to be on that, that's certainly okay. We don't necessarily have to have two on that one.
All right. Anybody else want to be a participant? Okay, well, Maureen, you're going to carry the ball alone. Town manager evaluation will be the chair, and then the traffic advisory committee.
I'm happy to give that up to the highest bidder.
Matt, we have a bid. We have a bidder. Do we have a bidding war? No, so Matt will be on the traffic advisory committee, and as
That is non-voting.
thank you. And as you mentioned, Dan, preservation committee.
Yes, as a voting member, I'd like to stay there.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else want to throw their hands up? Great, I think we have it.
Clarification, does this take effect immediately with these changes or
Yes.
fiscal year?
I would suggest immediately, if there's any meetings between now and then.
There's one the last Thursday next week.
Yep.
We can ask
Wednesday, yeah. Wednesday
Aaron to
afternoon.
put him on the,
I would say, normally in the past, we had dealt with this after the fiscal year ended, and so we were a little bit late. We started to do it earlier so that we were prepared by July 1st. We can certainly do it now. My only note, I'll have to share this with the liaison, so it may not be first thing tomorrow morning that we get this.
with what, on the traffic committee.
So if you guys want to arrange right now to have Matt come to the traffic committee tomorrow,
Yeah, so
that's
he knows
perfectly.
when the meeting
Yep,
is.
yep.
But Aaron needs to know that. Thank you.
But we'll get this will get out to staff this week, and we'll start to make the changes.
Thank you.
And-
Thank you, Gardner.
Yep, while we're on this little bit of reorg discussion, we already just talked about going back to town hall on June 1st. At that time, members, it has been historically, the members, senior members would let me know what their seating preference is at the selectmen's meeting. So I'll look to the senior members to say where they want to sit, and we'll decide from there.
Well, you're like tradition. Tradition is the
Yep.
former chair sits next to the manager.
Okay?
Am I correct?
If that, I don't recall that that's been the tradition, but if you do, and you want that, that's certainly what you'd want. All right, so chairman, there is a spot between the chairman, then Mr. Bennett, then the town manager. Do you have a preference, sir, where you'd like to sit?
This end, God, so I can use the
Okay?
other
You'll be
chair.
you'll be at the far end, okay, far. As we sit looking out, you're at the far right. Select person Bernard, do you have a preference beside me to the left or beside the town clerk on the right?
No, should be.
No, between
should be
Dan and
here
Steve, yeah, like here,
Or there.
Dan and me.
right here, here's mine.
You're next to, you said you wanted to be next to the town manager or
Didn't
next
you
to
say
the
it was
chairman,
between the town
Dan?
manager and Dan?
Selectman Bennett, Selectman X.
Okay,
Chairman.
right. So the question is, do you want to be between Dan and I?
Sure.
Okay.
It
Okay.
really doesn't matter.
No, but,
To me.
okay, and then Matt, you will be to the right
As
of
long as I have
Kathy.
a tape, like, can I request at town meeting and have a cover on the, at the high school. We won't be there anymore.
Okay, so that's settled. We did committee assignments back at Town Hall. Great. One last thing I would ask for board consideration is we moved the second meeting in June to June 24th to accommodate someone's travel considerations. I have an issue on the 24th, however, and would ask we move it to June 29th. That will be the last meeting before our summer recess. Are you okay with the 29th?
I am, yes, fine.
Great. Other members? You're good, Maureen?
okay.
Yeah.
Matt's good? Well,
Okey-dokey.
all right, then our next meetings will be June 1st and June 29th. Thank you.
Both at 6 p.m.
Both at 6 p.m. All right, at this time, the board will consider the consent calendar as they appear.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion to accept the consent calendar. And seconded. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Now I'll move to the board's correspondence, select board, new business, previous business. Basically, what do the selectmen want to talk about? I'll start with Selectman.
I suggest we start with Mr. Stoney.
Sure. I was going to do mine last, but I
We'll
think
do that, then
you
still be last.
That's fine. It is a sad news to report, and the board offers its condolences to the families and friends and colleagues, safety professional colleagues of Sergeant Richard Stoney on his passing. He was a 38-year member of the Danvers Police Department. He retired in May of 2012. He loved this community, and he was a leader, mentor, and a shining example of a civil servant. And we want to extend our deepest sympathies to his family, friends, and colleagues. Thank you very much. Any comments from the board? Please. Go ahead, Matt.
Just in general?
No, on Sergeant
Yeah,
Stoney.
he was a great man. I mean, I've known him a lot. Knew his kids, and sorry what happened to him, and our condolences to his family.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, I'll move to closing comments. I'll start with Selectman Bernard.
Okay, so the rail trail is always still looking for donations. I'm going to say that. The money is well spent. Larry Perot is the chairperson that's in charge of the fundraising. They received a $1,000 donation from the Western Cycles. Thank you very much. A big thank you out to the DPW for completing the nice job they did for the surfacing of the culvert and addressing the flooding and the surface erosion of north of Popular Street where the dentist office is. Rich Sousa, thank you very much. With that fundraising, we do have a storage shed, which is nice for our rakes and wheelbarrows and everything. Charlie does a great job with that. We're in the process of putting the porta potties installation, Putnamville Park and Hobart Lot. And that is provided as amenities by the Rail Trail Committee for the trail users, and to reduce the traffic to the local businesses for the restrooms. Let's see. We're finding out from Aaron Henry and Josh Morris that have been working on some adequate funding by the town for the initial phases of the extension, Northwest Extension project. Stay tuned for that. And I think, the biped bench installation was being donated by Electric Insurance. So that was for the rail trail. And also, I'd like to keep everybody up to date for the Danvers Housing Authority. The COVID update is that approximately 90% of the seniors are now vaccinated. Great job. Masks still inside and common areas are required. Outside, no mask. Social visitors are allowed, no overnight people can stay, due to COVID still. And talked to Cindy Dunn, they're adopting a pet policy now. That's been a big topic that they've been going back and forth with for years, just to make sure that all residents have a clear understanding and expectations and responsibilities of the pet owners and management. Once again, direct any of that to Cindy Dunn. And then there's also some projects that are going on that we're going to be starting August 1st, some handicap accessible project along Hawks Manor, so that's really great. And Cindy Dunn does do a great job. She bought us a $600,000 grant, about a year and a half ago to pay for a lot of these projects. So good job. It's a fun committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Select Board Member Duggan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to speak about the Memorial Day. So I know that there's a virtual program that DCAT has put on, but I also heard that there's maybe an actual parade thing that was also done last year. Is there someone that might be able to
10
speak
o'clock.
to
I
that?
think it's 10 o'clock. The drive-by.
We did get a information in our packet about the rolling caravan, but I'll ask the town manager to provide details.
I don't have them with me tonight, but you're correct.
I have it right here.
Similar to last year.
It's a
we did
rolling
have-
caravan sponsored by the police department, begins at 9 a.m., led by Grand Marshal Ruth Littlegear, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. And then the pre-recorded video will be broadcast Monday at 10, and again at 6.
Thank you.
On
And if
DCAT.
if Facebook can be counted on for anything, it did say that the route is commonly published on the Danvers Police Department's website a few days ahead, so people can.
But there is confusion out there. People think there's going to be a real parade. It's the rolling.
I understand that, but it is a rolling caravan.
Okay,
Did that answer your
Yeah,
question?
That's great. Thank you very much. I'm
Thank
all
you.
set.
Anything else, sir? Anything else,
I'm
Matt?
all set, sir.
Oh, you're all set, okay. Selectman Mills, closing comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Board of the Senior Center met today for the regular monthly meeting. We always discuss financing, which is extremely boring. But there's been no change because there's been nothing going on for 2 months, 3 months, 5 months. But in any event, we're getting ready to reopen safely, and everybody is really excited about that. And in the meanwhile, the staff down there has done a great job of keeping older people happy and connected during the period of the COVID. The next thing is that the Cable Advisory Committee, which is really a delightful, you should come to that. We met last night, yesterday afternoon, and with Jen Breaker's excellent counsel, and she should be the lawyer for the committee, we're negotiating with Comcast for the remaining 3 years of, for 3 years, hopefully, of a interim contract so that when negotiations open in 3 years for the Verizon contract, for the benefit of the town, financially and in other ways, the two competing companies will be on the same track for contract renovation. And then finally, the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee is meeting tonight. I'm sorry that that it coincided with this meeting because several of the members wanted to be here to just hear the discussion. It was explained to them that there's not a public hearing and no vote being taken, but they do want to be included, and I'm going to tell them that they're included and to submit in writing or come to the next meeting or comment as well as they can on anything in our community program. They are also in the process of planning a basically half online and half offline Pride flag celebration on June 3rd. It's the first Thursday in June, in front of the town hall and online, and also attempting to work with our archivist, Dick Trask, to formulate a Juneteenth program, which would be basically online and will be a brand-new event for us and for that committee. And the committee is very, very active. There's a couple new members, and they are terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Bennett.
Thank you. Yesterday, the Friends of the Danvers Council on Aging had their annual meeting, and I had the honor and privilege to read a citation from Senator Lovely to Pam Parkinson and her staff for all the work they did during COVID for the Danvers senior community with all the different drive-throughs, poinsettia deliveries, meals, et cetera. While everything was shut down, they still managed to connect with the senior community, and that was very nice of Senator Lovely to send that citation over. I'd like to wish Nancy Libby, Administrative Assistant in the Fire Department, a happy and long retirement, well-deserved. And if I may continue with the veterans.
You may, please.
Thank you. So we've been doing this for a number of years. We want everybody to remember the veterans all the time, but especially now Memorial Day. Please remember the vets when you see one. Thank them. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll report on the affordable housing meeting. There was one last night, Selectman Bernard, and I do have to apologize. I am trying to get better at calling us select board members, but sometimes I slip on his three. But we attended, we heard a couple of interesting items. We did get a presentation for Maple Court, which is a development that's being considered at the corner of Hobart and Maple, across from the old fire station, as it were, which basically the hot water site. And this will be one of the first applications of the overlay district 40R zoning, and will, to the interest of the Affordable Housing Trust, will generate 24 units. 20% of the units that will be offered for rental is 24 units. It's 120 units, 20% being 24. So that's it will be a good boost to our SHI numbers. We are expecting that we will be over our 10% when the census is certified, probably another year or so. But it certainly gives us a buffer. One of the other more important activities we're working on is on zoning bylaw changes we're presenting to the planning board, working with Aaron Henry to take our current inclusionary zoning, and between what we had in inclusionary zoning and what we have in the 40R zoning regarding affordable housing, come together and create a consistent zoning across the town, so that it isn't pockets here and there, but more consistent right across the board. I would report on the River Committee, but the meeting is tonight, so I'm here. I had received no correspondence that the rest of us hadn't already received, and in that case, it included the town manager, and I turned to the town manager to work through the logistics of whatever the emails were, and get back to us as needed. So, other than that, I think I am done.
Garrett, could I say one more thing?
You may, please.
The town meeting on Monday night, for those who were there or paying attention, lasted about an hour and 15 minutes. And I remember back 35 or 40 years ago, we had a town meeting that went into the third night. I don't know what was being debated. But I think the reason why we had an effective, efficient, conscientious town meeting, of an hour and 15 minutes is because of the massively competent administration, in spite of COVID and everything else, putting together all of the materials so that there really were no questions left unanswered. And it made the work of the town meeting very easy and very efficient and very accurate. So kudos to Steve and the rest of the town people who are part of that massive preparation. Nice job, again.
And if I could echo and build off that, thanks also to the town moderator for her diligence and hard work ahead of time. And in that evening, thank you to the Finance Committee for their volunteerism and representation at the meeting. And thank you to the 144 citizens who willingly volunteer their time to act as as neighbors' representatives as town meeting members. They are thoughtful, the questions were thoughtful, and they do their homework ahead of time, and all of that combined, along with the administration's hard work, make for a smooth transition.
Terrific.
Thank you. With that, if there's no other comments, I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.